Welcome to Prepare to Care, the AARP podcast that provides tools and resources to help caregivers in their families. I am your host, Charlene Hunter James. Well, the holiday season is upon us, and many of us struggle to determine what a particular person needs for the holidays. Others face the struggle of declining health, whether or not to leave the lights on, pet put food on the table. As the pandemic really worsens, many food insecurities may be on the rise. Many of those hit hard are those that are 50 plus and older. Jerry Haus, Interfaith Ministries Director of Development, joins us today to offer us resources and services available to the 50 plus community and caregivers, specifically around the holidays. Mr. Haus, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's start with telling us a little bit about Interfaith Ministries and what your organization does.
Sure. Interfaith Ministries for Greater Houston started about 50 years ago when Reverend Lawson, Archbishop Fiorelli, and Ferran, thank you. My names are getting jumbled. And the rabbi, Karf, who has recently passed away, got together and said, all of us are focused on some of the same issues, helping our communities do things, doing things for others who need help. What if we kind of combined our resources? So they got together and just started talking, and it developed into Interfaith Ministries. So we have three main program areas. The one we'll be talking about most today is Meals on Wheels, which is a national program. We also do refugee resettlement, where we actually work with refugee families as they immigrate to the United States and help them get resettled in their new homes. And we also have a program related to interfaith relations and community partnerships, where we work to coordinate the efforts of our interfaith people from all faiths across Houston. And as I was mentioning in a little side conversation earlier, that we have so many different faiths, of which I can probably get to a list of 13, but there are many more, of which I could only recall maybe half of those. But what we do is we work together and we encourage people, whether you have faith or have no faith, this is a welcome place for you if you're interested in helping others. So that's kind of our mission, what we focus on and what we do.
And so you mentioned several organizations, but we will kind of spend some time talking about Meals on Wheels. So who is eligible for your home delivered meal program, and what does that entail?
So Meals on Wheels is aimed at people with disabilities and people over 50 who are food insecure. So many people have a caregiver who can handle a lot of the help they need and help them get to grocery stores, help them maybe just deliver groceries to them. These are people who may live in a food desert or have the inability to drive themselves and may not have that support network. And Meals on Wheels provides a daily meal Monday through Friday that's hot and delivered, the caveat being in non-COVID time. And then on Fridays, we will generally give them some frozen meals to carry them through the weekend if they're in particular need. The purpose of it is not just the meal, but it's a meal plus. And it's the opportunity for drivers to knock on the door, say, hey, this is Meals on Wheels. We got your meal for you. Is everything going okay? It's almost a wellness check. It's a little bit of a friendly face. We tend to keep the same drivers, the same volunteers, the same staff, whoever it is doing the deliveries, consistent so that these seniors get to know them a little bit. So there's no income eligibility requirements. It really is focused around, do you have food insecurity in your life? And that's the way you qualify. And the way to do that would be to reach out to your local Meals on Wheels program and see if they have availability to work with you.
Now we know the holidays are upon us, and so I'm sure you all are doing something, a little bit more given the COVID environment, but also to help people who particularly live alone in the meal delivery program cope. So, what are some of the tips, and what do you share with them about getting through the
Sure.
holidays?
Yeah. So the Meals on Wheels program for Thanksgiving, we put together a actual full Thanksgiving meal, and we provide 2 meals to each senior so that they could possibly share that with a neighbor or somebody who may happen to be with them at the time. We also have set up this year, because it's COVID, normally there'd be a delivery. This year it is a frozen meal, but that frozen meal has all the trimmings with it, just like a traditional Thanksgiving feast. But we incorporated or recruited community volunteers to make phone calls. And we made phone calls to every one of our clients that day, from a community member saying, "Hi, I'm calling as a volunteer for Meals on Wheels to say, did you get your meal? Remember to heat it up and share that with a friend if you can. And we just want to let you know that we care about you and hope you're having a great Thanksgiving." So that was one way of having that human touch and human communication that helps. And now that we are at holiday Christmas traditional time, we're also going to be sending meals to them. They're going to be frozen, but they all have microwaves. We made sure of that. We're also giving them a holiday gift bag, and we've recruited sponsorships from the corporate world and individual donors to help us. It's not much, but it usually includes a warm item like a socks or mittens or a scarf,
Oh, great.
possibly maybe a lap blanket, and then a couple fun items. So maybe a puzzle book, or maybe even a traditional small puzzle, but just something that lets them know that we're thinking about them and we care about them. So I do want to kind of explain what's happening during COVID. We are keeping socially distant because these are the most vulnerable people for catching COVID.
Yes.
So we are making one delivery a week of a full week's worth of what they need for their meals. But each day, the people who normally deliver the meals are making an individual phone call to check in on their wellness, and just to keep up maintain that ability to know what's going on and identify any issues that might be happening. So the Meals on Wheels program, then, if something is going on or there is an issue that either the driver notices visually or can hear, or it's identified by the client, we do work with social workers to then see what other follow-up needs they have and make referrals and go from there.
Okay, I was going to ask you that. Suppose you identify other needs, and it could be housing related, health related. Is that a part of the assessment and referral process?
Exactly. We're not in the housing part of it, but we do help with all those referrals, and we do have to do a full assessment at least once a year for sure. I believe it's twice a year where there's a full assessment of what's going on, where we actually have one of our social workers make the delivery, ask some more questions and get a little more in-depth information to see what their status is and see if there's been any changes in their health or their situation.
Well, you've mentioned what your eligibility requirements are for the Meals on Wheels program, but I'm sure if you receive a call from someone else who may not meet the exact criteria, do you have a referral process, or what happens with those individuals?
Yes, we do make available to them referrals. Most likely they can get assistance from a food shelf if it is a food-related issue. If it's more of a health issue or whatever, we also have contacts that we will work with and make sure that that's followed through. So we are a little bit of that first immediate contact for a lot of people to find out and reach out. A lot of people get confused with the name Interfaith Ministries because there are many organizations that have that same type of name or very similar name, and we all do different things. Some of them provide direct assistance. That's not part of what we do. We encourage people and caregivers as a first call to reach out, like I said earlier, was the 211 United Way number is a great way of finding more resources for yourself. And then the other way of going about it is reach out to your own faith community. If you belong to a faith community, they also have connections that they can put you in touch with for additional help. And those are great resources and a great first step for a lot of people.
Right, because we have so many people who are not in the immediate Houston area, and so but they would be interested in the types of services that you have mentioned in our interview. So I'm glad to hear that they can call the 211 number, and that will help them connect with the appropriate sources for that.
Exactly.
So what would be one last tip that you would like to offer for persons who are homebound, particular during this holiday season, that would be of value?
The one thing that I find in my work in fundraising and from the stories I hear from drivers and that is if there's any way you can connect with a senior, whether it's a card, whether it's an email, whether it's a Zoom call, that just shows that you care and you're keep touching base with them, that helps the mental health of everybody immensely. It's knowing that there's somebody out there who actually cares about them. And so in the greater Houston area, you can be one of our wellness callers and you can contact us and we can kind of help connect you and be part of that program to reach out and just check in on people and see how things are going. We have some other side programs called through Volunteer Houston that can help some of these seniors with some basic task, like a little bit of house cleaning. We're not going in there and doing spring cleaning at all, but there might be a few things, or there might be a small repair where once we know about it, we can make connections, and maybe there's some yard work, and we have a volunteer chore corps that we're working with that can possibly help some people who need that sort of assistance. The other thing that's unique about this time of year is that sometimes there can be issues with inconsistency with availability of caregivers. So we just want to keep on top of that. And the more communication you can have, the better for everybody.
Well, Mr. Haus, thank you so much for joining us today. Your information has been very valuable. And we wish you a very safe and healthy holiday season.
And the same to you. We appreciate so much the outpouring of help, and it takes everybody together to get everyone through this COVID-19 time period. And together, we're better together, is all I have to say.
We encourage you to follow To Prepare to Care podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, or at www.aarp.org/Houston PTC. You can also find our podcast on the AARP Texas YouTube channel. Thanks for listening, and as always, thank you for caring.